Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a Mastery Empowerment course brought to you by New Earth One Network. We are here to talk about how we can reclaim an ancient ally for healing ourselves and our animals. My guest today is Ana Maria Vasques, and she is a multisensory intuitive, and we're here to talk about sacred medicine. Hello, Ana Maria.
Oh my goodness. Hello. How wonderful to be here and to have these soulful conversations and remember some amazing allies in our lives, as well as that phenomenal connection that we have with the animals.
Yes, we love the connection with the animals and nature and all the things. You've worked with plant music, which we know a lot about here. And one of the things that you're working with now is CBD. Let's talk about the history, a little bit of history for our folks.
Well, it's so interesting because people around the globe for ages, as far back as we know, we have, 3,000 years ago is the earliest record that we found so far about our tribal and indigenous use of these plants for healing. And it wasn't just the North American or the South American or Central American indigenous folks. It was the Celts. It was all across the globe everywhere that people lived upon the earth, they were cultivating this particular plant. And our bodies actually are hardwired to receive this balance that comes from the plant. And most folks are aware of the mind altering kind of aspects, but there's deeper healing that's happening. And when we're in this place now where we can bring modern day science and technology to our understanding of plants and plant systems, we are starting to understand ways that we can work with and collaborate with these plants in a whole new way. But as the world began its colonization across the planet, and the mainstream folks were making decisions about what was going to be allowed, what wasn't going to be allowed anymore. This plant, the cannabis plant, is one of the first ones that began to be taken out of the context of use and then demonized and eventually actually made illegal in the United States. It's actually a Schedule 1 narcotic, which means it has no medicinal value. And it's interesting that our US government would do that since they actually hold multiple patents on medical uses for the cannabis plant. The most famous one, of course, is for epilepsy in children. So the insanity of keeping it suppressed and illegal and out of the hands of the humans on the planet is only part of keeping us away from this plant that can really help us, especially now in these times when we are realizing that we need to be returning to our connection to this planet, to the plants, to the trees, to the rocks, to the animals. And when we start to work in collaboration with these elements instead of using them in the way that we have in the past, we step into a shift in our way of being. And that is where not only do we experience the physical effects of working with that plant, but we also experience these energetic expansions because we've shifted our perspective and we've stepped further into that unity consciousness, which is what we're here to remember. So you don't have to try and connect too many dots before you realize that there could be some folks who are doing this on purpose to keep us in that separation state. So this is why it's important for us each to return to our own knowingness and to really live in a connected way to the plants, the animals, the planet, each other.
Yes, absolutely. And we're certainly feeling that right now, aren't we, on our planet, where we're being shown what it feels like not to have that. It doesn't feel too good. And we're being shown that I think everyone agrees. I think everyone in the polarity of everything agrees that we all want peace and happiness and freedom and harmony and equality and justice, right? So that's the vision that we're holding. All right. So when you talk about working in collaboration with instead of using, let's talk a little bit more there on what that truly means. Some ceremonies or conscious interaction. That's a big topic there.
Right. And this is what our next step is collectively about this conscious living and stepping more into unity consciousness. So in the past, we were takers, and we even say it, oh, I take my vitamins, I take my supplements. And hopefully, again, we want to be as close to nature and the natural world as possible. So hopefully that people are taking and working with whole food based, whole plant based kinds of uh, supplements and ways to nourish and bring their body into balance. And so, even when we're collaborating with those whole food based products, we don't want to be coming from that old energy of taking and using in so many ways that we have that's gotten us to this point in our human history where our planet is really asking for us to live on her in a different way. And so from the very beginning, the plants that I work with, they are selected in a way for, particular vibrations that they bring to this whole process. When they're being grown, we play the plant music of the mother plant, the mother cannabis plant. We recorded her, using the plant music machine. We were able to record her bioenergetic feedback. And there's actually two different mother plants that we work with. And so we recorded those, and then we can play it to the plant, the seedlings, and it helps them remember who they are and what they are doing. And then on this plant's journey, we keep this consciousness there throughout the whole time. How can we use the resources in a way that's honoring to the planet? And I am so proud because one of the farms where my grower does his magic with the plants, it has been set apart as an example for others, because the amount of resources that they're using in such a conscious way is phenomenal and unheard of very oftentimes in traditional agriculture. So it's a different way of being with the earth there. And then we go on to the fact that if we run into any pest issues, any non-beneficial insects that are, coming and bothering the plants and throwing them out of balance, instead of using these harmful chemicals that the plant ingests and then the human or the animal in turn ingests, we have created different ecosystems outside of where they're all being grown, where the plants can be put, and Mother Nature and the beneficial insects come in and support the plant and bring it back into balance. So there's that in these different ways that we're working within the 3D systems of horticulture. But then we add our plants are grown in a sacred valley, and the valley is so special, and it starts from the aquifer and the amazing bedrock that the water moves through, not to mention that there are crystal fields, quartz crystal fields in the sides of the mountains where this valley sits. So these plants are constantly being bathed in this high vibrational energy. And this isn't just some hopeful woo-woo kinds of aspects. This valley actually is known for the increase in different kinds of activity going on in the area that typically just happens in those high vibrational areas. So I was honored when we were coming into an agreement about sharing the plants in this way. I went out to honor the place where the plants are being grown, and I had an extraordinary experience with hawk. And this hawk was actually the matriarchal hawk of this area, and the grower actually talked about seeing her and her family there, and that the people in the area have seen her and her family for generations. And so I was driving the perimeter and doing a blessing, getting ready to do a blessing, I should say. And so it's a dirt country road. And so I had pulled over to get myself in the space and make sure I had everything I needed since I was driving while I was doing this. And all of a sudden I feel something watching me. And I'm like, huh. So I look out my window, and on a post right outside my window is this mother hawk. And she's standing there looking at me. And I got to tell you, she was looking at me like, do you think you could speed this up a little bit? Because I was taking my sweet time. So I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. I honor you. And so I got going, and she flew alongside of my car, eye level outside of my window for a half a mile. I'm looking at the odometer, I'm looking at her, I'm saying the prayers, I'm setting the intentions, my heart is blown wide open at this point. A half a mile at that point, she flies in front of the car and leads me at eye level again down this road another half a mile. So we've been together for a full mile at this point, and then she flies off. It was the most amazing confirmation. And I thought I was sending a blessing, but I received the biggest blessing. And it was about this unity consciousness and sharing things in a different way. And the magic of that is translated into these plant products that are bringing people and animals back into balance. And it's humbling to be a part of that.
What a beautiful story with that hawk. As we know from doing ceremony, people report, including myself, that the birds show up. The birds show up. That is so amazing. What a validation. How beautiful. How beautiful. So let's talk a little bit more about that process because that sounds really fascinating. You're playing the plant music. You're playing the plant music of the mother plant to the growers' plants. And is that part of the CBD oil then that's okay, so
Yes.
this is plant music CBD oil.
Yes. So this
You're
is
using the
the
plant
mother
music.
plant. Yes.
This is
So
the
we're
so
growing those plants that will become, in the end process, they will become the CBD oil.
That is so cool. I love how you're using that application because we can listen to the music as well, but for you to play it to the plants, that is really very, very cool. And the grower, let's talk about how the grower, how has the grower seen this change the plants? Are they more boisterous? Are they greener?
Well, the first thing that is that we know about playing music to plants in the first place is a bigger yield, typically a better use of water, all of those things. So then when you take it to the next level and you play music specifically from a plant to another plant, we see the same things, an increase in the yield, an increase in the resiliency of the plant, the bigger flowers or fruit that comes from that particular plant. And then not only is that happening on that front end, all the while that the plant is, growing and developing and being reminded that it's part of this healing team. Once we get to the other end where somebody is working with the plant medicine, they get a recording of that same music. And so they play it when they take the drops or when they administer them to their animal. You play that, and there are different harmonics that are being delivered in activations that are happening. And we know from just one study that patients who are exposed to plant music of just house plants were released from hospital stays 3 days sooner than those who were not exposed to plant music. And so immediately my brain went to, so what happens when you play the music of a plant that is specifically known for helping, healing, bringing a particular aspect into balance? Can you imagine how interdimensional that we get to be at that point? And so you've got this multidimensional collaboration and delivery system. Nobody's doing this in this industry. And again, this aspect to me, the most important part is honoring the plant. Again, we've got it's everywhere. Everybody you can go to a gas station and find CBD. But we also know that just like in industrialized agriculture, there is an exploitation going on of the animals or the plants. And your body then has to process all of that energy. And so for me, it was important that I align myself with a process that honored the plants. I can't have the connection that I have to the natural world and not operate like that. That's out of integrity for me and out of authenticity. So this space of honoring the plant from the beginning all the way through, and reminding us of how it is that we're able to collaborate with this ally. It just takes it to a whole different dimension than how we've been doing it.
That is New Earth. That is New Earth respect and its integrity and its honor. And I loved the word collaboration that you use. Truly, it is a multi-dimensional experience with the sacred valley where the mother plant is grown in, where the crystals are. These are also, is this where the grower is as well? So the plants are grown in this beautiful area?
Yes, and we have
Mm.
had expansion. So there are, we believe in small family farms. This is also important to us that individual beings are here creating value and to not devalue them or get away from personal faces. This connection to each other is important. This is how we've moved through in our expansion as human beings and as a tribe on this planet. And so it's important to us to continue to honor that. And so my grower, I'm so moved and amazed at the manifestation because he has become a bit of a celebrity of his own right in what he knows about growing. And we talk about how he followed his, because he's an engineer in the background of all of this, but how he followed his intuitive nudges about listening to the plants and when he would bring problems to them, how and what, even though it went against traditional ways. And that's why we're in a position where he's being called to speak to growers and industry leaders and even FDA administrators about the process, and where we get other growers from other areas and other places in the world asking us questions about how we're doing things because we're creating something that has a potency that you wouldn't expect otherwise through traditional methods. So the bringing all of this together and then sharing it in the way that we are, it is, when we all do better, we all do better.
When we all do better, we all do better. Sharing, that is the way of New Earth. And we are getting there. And that's what we hold our vision of. I just honor you so much, Anna Maria, for really holding that space, being diligent to that process, right? That ceremony. And the hawk story is amazing. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the beautiful benefits of CBD oil. Let's talk first about the grower that you're working with as he goes with his intuition. Don't you love that? The scientist, engineer, knowing to go with the intuition. And you mentioned then that there was something that was outside of the traditional bounds and talking to the plants, and even you with the plant music, and myself when we work with the plants and the plant music, we do talk to the plants. What did the grower learn that you can share with us about doing things outside of the ordinary? Like just an example, if you can think of one.
Well, the first one was about the beneficial insects, working with them, which is actually, integrated pest management. That is something that is being incorporated more and more, especially in organic farming and all of that. but he had some hits on certain plants that would naturally attract the beneficial bugs instead of, again, going into a system that is shipping out insects that they're cultivating. It's very mechanized. It's an old paradigm way of doing it, instead of thinking, what are the natural plants to this area that would draw in these particular insects that we're looking for, and then planting them on the peripheral of the greenhouse, of the outdoor grow area where it is being. So naturally, these beneficial insects are being naturally drawn there, and they don't want to touch the plants because they want to stay with the plant that is outside. And I believe it's a variety of barley that they're planting out there that is attracting these beneficial insects, but not harming the actual plants that we're working with. And
Yes.
the another aspect would have been it's in a blending. So again, as we expand and as we work with other conscious farms and farmers, the blending, because different areas, the plants that happen at that first original farm have a particular vibration and also a particular chemical signature on them, a natural chemical signature that a farm in another area, maybe on the other side of the valley, is going to have a different signature. And so you start to connect in and see what the signatures are and what the blend is going to be that's going to create a consistent product that is beneficial to the widest range of issues that humans and animals are facing. So it's almost, like any of us in our work, in our light work at least, where you're constantly in the listening about how to tweak and how to move and which way to follow the flow naturally, instead of being stuck in old paradigm ways of it has to be done like this.
Yes, beautiful. All right, so the beautiful place where this is grown and the way that you do it and the honoring that you do it is really beautiful. You're also up at high altitude, above 7,000 feet. And as we know from the masters, this is really outside of the collective consciousness, the electromagnetic field. So that's pretty special too. I'm getting goosebumps, angel bumps as I speak that, because again, when we talk about the vibration, this is really set up as a very cool, high frequency, from your intention, from the intention of the grower, from the support given to the plant, from the connection from the mother plant to the baby plants, through the music. And then we get to the actual product and the cultivating of that product. And I'm certain that that's done with respect as well. Let's talk a little bit about that and then how you get it out there in the marketplace and what some of those stories are like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because one of the things that really impassions me about staying in integrity along the way is, it used to be if somebody was creating an inferior product through whatever ways they were doing that, it was just kind of a waste of money for folks. You'd like, oh, I blew my money on that. It didn't work, whatever. But we're at a point with our own technology and everything that we do, that we're now learning, and based on scientific research, that the inferior products, especially inferior CBD products, not only will they be non-beneficial or non-useful or non-helpful to you, they can actually be detrimental. Because once you've cultivated, when you're using a full spectrum, high quality CBD, you are pressing, just like an essential oil. So our essential oil users in the group understand how there's an extraction process that can happen. There's a pressing or whatever it is, and each plant is a little bit different. In a cannabis plant, it has to be extracted out. It's not like a grape where you can just push it and then get the oil to come out like that, or an olive or something like that. There's an extraction process that does have to happen. And so some people use harmful chemicals, like hexane is the one that comes to mind first. And it's because it's a cheap and quick way to extract out that essence, that element of the CBD. And what we also find in the inferior products is they will put the whole, not just the flower, but the stalk and the stems, and they will extract from that, which does have CBD in it, but it's such a lower quality and such a lower potency. So you're already mixing and getting these weird kind of extractions from that, when you really want it all to come from the flower that has been cultivated specifically for these effects. So one of the scientific research aspects that were released last summer was they were finding that these rats, who unfortunately they were testing medically with them, but they were testing them for CBD with liver issues, that these rats had liver issues, and they were trying to see if it would help or not help. Most of the rats ended up dying. So I want to send my honor and my respect to them for giving their lives in service in a way, when we do have other ways to do this anymore. But what we did learn from that study was the extraction. The products that they were using in their testing were products that had been extracted with hexane. Hexane is so toxic to us and our livers that here they were trying to use something that we know is good for a body and for a liver and for tumors, but it actually killed. It was lethal because of the chemical residue that was left in there. So it's so vitally important that you have an extraction process that is not keeping harmful, first of all, not using harmful chemicals, and then secondly, not keeping chemical residue in there. And so there's all this testing that has to be done, and you should be able to have access to that when you're looking at different products. So we know where we come in on that. And we also know, because CO2 extraction is kind of the gold standard in the industry. It's safe, it's effective, but we learned that the temperature, and anyone who is a raw foodist will understand that temperature matters, because once the temperature gets above a certain point, it will start to actually degrade various elements within whatever product you're working with, fruit, vegetable, flour, whatever it might be. And so we learned that we needed to have a lower temperature to be able to extract. This was one of those intuitive nudges that the grower followed, and to learn how to do a closed loop extraction so that we had lower temperatures but no chemical residue, and that we didn't have to use any of those crazy chemicals. So that's what is on the end result giving us the high accolades that we're getting, especially in the area of pain relief. I've got folks who have been on narcotics for decades because of chronic pain, from, back, neck, hip, knee, things like that. And nothing was getting them relief. Even the narcotics, they started taking, you know, drops of this CBD, our CBD, and they're feeling like they haven't felt in decades, and they're able to get off of those harmful narcotics, which we already know are creating all sorts of different issues in their bodies. So that is the proof to me of what it is. And so what I've learned is people, because again, the market is flooded with CBD, but there's no regulation. It's considered a dietary supplement. So it's really the Wild West out there. And so it's important to me. I always believe education is key for everything, but in this case it's really important, because again, if we pick something that's inferior, it's not only are we wasting our money, but there's chances that we could not we could do harm, and one of our first things is to not do harm. So we have to be educated, but there's so many choices out there, so people oftentimes don't know what to use, how to start, and even if they do have a good product, they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to dose with it, because it's very different as a plant-based medicine than, take 4 of these 3 times a day. It's very different. And so that dialing in process, and it's individual. In modern Western medicine, it's often like, what's your weight? And then we'll figure out how much you should get by this, but I have people whose chihuahuas are taking more drops than, the big 300-pound man is taking, because it depends on each individual body system. So we have some starting points that we know that we can start at, but we always want to start and use the lowest dose and then kind of dial up from there. Start low, go slow, because we want to find the lowest, most potent dose for us, because again, that leads us back to being good stewards of the land. It takes a lot of plant material. It takes a lot of flower to create that. It takes a lot of labor. There is a lot involved in it, which is why when people look at it, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. There is so much involved. It's actually amazing that people have gotten it to a point where they can have a little bit of a margin in there. So we have to be listening at each step of the way, not just the plants as they're being grown and me as I'm infusing it for a particular person or animal, but then the human also has the human or the animal who's utilizing it has that aspect of listening. So for us as humans, we'd be listening for our cat or our dog and watching and seeing the feedback and incorporating the music, the harmonics, again, to activate that plant medicine and those vibrations within us. And we are in a relationship then with that plant. And what we found is, like I said, it's great for pain relief. But the beautiful side effects that people have, better sleep, better balance in the brain function, the heart expansion, the feeling like my father, he's always been my greatest guinea pig in here through the whole process. And he told me it feels like it gives me that gap in reacting in situations. He takes it for pain and an autoimmune issue that he has. But he said he found he can be a little hot-headed, and he said he found that it created this gap. And I likened it to, most of us practice meditation or breathing processes to get us to that space where we've got that gap before we respond, so we can respond appropriately in any given situation. And it's like this plant becomes your ally that helps you, open that heart space and show up in a different way. So we might be taking it because we got this neck ache or this backache or that bad hip or whatever it is, or our arthritic dog or our anxious cat, but we start to find that there are ripple benefits that come out from it, which I think is phenomenal. And again, one plant to be able to help bring balance in so many different areas, it's phenomenal.
Phenomenal, so much that it could even be that ETs planted this beautiful plant on our planet. I've heard that. Have you?
I have heard that before, and it would not surprise me, because left to our own human devices, we didn't even know about the endocannabinoid system in the body. We didn't even know about the receptors. We didn't realize that in all of our medical knowledge. This is something that has been uncovered more recently, and I believe that it goes along with the, I guess, extraterrestrial or off planet assistance that the humans have had, even within our own DNA encoding and the imprints that are there. I believe that it absolutely goes hand in hand with it.
Very interesting. What's also interesting is you mentioned that there's endoreceptors in our body specifically for cannabis, almost like it's unlocking a key. Isn't
Yes.
that interesting that it is seen also as a deprogrammer? So what we're talking about with CBD oil, this is non-psychoactive, right?
Yes.
So it's using it, but still being in conscious control for those who dislike that. But that's really powerful because again, you talked about the relationship with the plant. And as we know, like with the plant music, as we know, it's so multidimensional that the intention of the person can actually, for healing, so for the frequency you wish to be for healing, it could actually be amplified on the music, with the CBD oil. So isn't that fascinating? Share with us again how, the protocol then for people with your product and the music.
Yes. So the interesting thing, like you were saying, CBD, all healing, no high. And this is important for people on all sorts of different levels, and especially when we are administering it to our animals, because animals are so much more sensitive to it. And so for them, feeling high, it's not funny, it's not good. You really, if you're going to be working with the THC component, you really need to know what you're doing. And so the beauty of CBD is it doesn't have any harmful interactions. It doesn't have, you can't overdose on it. There is none of those negative side effects on that. And so, again, all healing, no high. And what's fascinating is CBD, any creature that has a backbone has an endocannabinoid system, which has those receptors. Again, it's like a lock and a key, and one fits into the other. So it's phenomenal. It's an amazing design for us to have such an amazing ally who knows our body in such an amazing way for us to interact. So when we're looking at protocol, I always, again, for me, the easiest thing to dose and get relief on is pain. Even people who've had chronic pain, I just know this is a good spot to start with. So when you're working with CBD, whether you're taking it in drop form, or whether you're taking it in a rub kind of form, like a salve, it takes 30 minutes for it to activate in your system. And that's the first thing that people should get to know. And once you start working with it, you can start to know it. I know 25 to 27 minutes for me personally is when I will feel that shift. So what I tell people is before you work with it, rate your pain. So is it a 1? Is it a 7? Is it a 10? Where are you on the pain scale? Because CBD is like gentle lightning. It works phenomenally, but I have sat with people who are chronic pain sufferers and had them take a dose, and then they're like, well, of course I'm going to know if I don't have the pain. I have that pain all the time. And then in 45 minutes, I'll check in with them and I'll say, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice, but it doesn't hurt anymore. There's something phenomenal about our pain receptors, the way that they work. So it's important that you rate it first. So where are you? Are you a 7? Are you a 10? What is it? Just pay attention. Then you would administer the drops. For most people, 4 to 6 drops is going to take care of most things. So you have a headache, you've got, you pulled something funny in your arm or whatever it is, or so I'm going to say humans first, and then I'm going to come back and do an animal one on that. But 4 to 6 for most people, drops. If you're taking the drops, you're going to put it under your tongue and you're going to hold it for 90 seconds because we want you to absorb it sublingually through that soft tissue in your mouth before you swallow it, because your digestive system and all those juices are going to start to break down that potency. And so, and if you have assimilation issues, some people know I don't absorb things well, then hold it longer, up to 5 minutes. You can hold it. Well, if you can, that's a long time, but at least 90 seconds. During that 90 seconds, you're going to play the plant music. You ask the plant to help you. You set your intentions for balance. I usually do balance in the body, in the mind, and in the energy field, because all 3 of them are related and they're all interacting it together. So you've rated your pain, you've asked the plant to help you, you're listening to the plant music, you're setting your intentions. 30 minutes, maybe set a timer, check back. Where's your pain? On a scale of 1 to 7, or on a scale of 1 to 10, did it come down? 1 point, 2 points. This is how we start to dial in the dose. Now, the people who I've worked with that have chronic pain and have had it for decades, they typically have to be at a higher dose. So if you start at 6 drops and you're like, it only came down a thing and it only lasted for 30 minutes, pay attention. This is where we become the we become the scientists in our own living laboratory and we look at that. So, because technically the relief can last from anywhere from an hour to 8 hours. It depends on each person again and what's going on. So, most people dosing twice a day, the 4 to 6 drops, it's going to take care of most things. But if you've got chronic pain that you've had for a long time or acute situations, so let's say I go out horseback riding and I come off the wrong way, I land on my head or whatever, and I hurt my wrist. That's an acute situation. I'm probably, depending on the severity of it, going to have to dose more often. Maybe I'm gonna have to dose 3 or 4 times that day. Maybe if it's really severe, I'm gonna have to dose hourly or every other hour. But that's an acute situation, and you don't stay at that kind of dosing long term. Most people, it's gonna be 2 times a day. Now, when we're talking about animals, especially cats, because they're so sensitive, and CBD has been, and they're a completely different being than anything else on this planet. I just love them. Uh, but they're very sensitive to CBD. And it's a miracle for them because they have very few and limited options, especially in pain management and anxiety management. They don't have the same options that dogs and humans and even horses might have. So with cats, especially, and the smaller dogs, the ones that are under the 10 pounds, you want to start very conservatively, 1 drop or 2 drops. For animals, I suggest again in the soft tissue. So if you can put it in. Now, I know the cat owners are all going, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to get a drop in there. And that's okay. And some of the dog owners too, that's okay. We can put it into food. You just have to know that if we mix it into the food, you might have to do a higher dose, but always start low. So we're going to start with 1 or 2 drops twice a day, and see, we're going to start to notice. Again, if you mix it into the food, especially for the really finicky eaters, you're going to want to mix it in really good and then put it in the fridge for a while so that it marries, so that the smells and the tastes marry together. Because cats are amazing and they'll figure you out. They'll be on to you. If you have a cat that just will not, I'm not touching that, you're not putting it in me, then we can go to dropping it on the tops of their paws because they're going to lick that off. They don't want that on their paw. Or on any place that they're going to be able to groom. Because if they start, I've worked with some very intelligent cats, and they are like, they get onto you, and then they don't want to come out at certain times of day. So maybe even on the back or the side where they might not even notice when you drop it on them. So we can get creative. And when people work with me and they purchase my products, they get access to a special CBD access page where I give them these tutorials and I talk about, what do you do here? How do you do this? How does this work? So those are the basic ways, especially with the drops, that we start to kind of dose and figure out what we're going to do. If you're dosing with the rub instead, you just apply it topically as close to the area that hurts. Get it as close to it as you can. I mean, we don't want to put it necessarily like on to sensitive places with that rub, but get it as close as you can. And it's the same thing. It takes about 30 minutes. I have, again, for me, because my community is people and animals, so I was always stepping out with how can I help the people and the animals in a natural way. And I ended up with so much relief from little old animals and little old ladies that it spread in the little old lady community. And so I have so many of our elders who are getting this relief in a natural way when everything else that their doctors have been giving them isn't working anymore. And again, they've got that option of drops that they take internally, or the rub that you put on topically, because everyone has their own comfort levels on things too. And I've had folks that are like, oh, unless my doctor, specifically prescribes it, I'm afraid. And so I want to meet everyone where they're at. And so there's ways to work with this for you to take it into your own experience and for you and your animals to find where that balance is. And then of course, I'm always available to help with that dosing and dialing that in.
Well, this is really good, and you are offering such good information and experience that actually validates what people are experiencing when they use this themselves. Isn't it interesting that the animals are totally open and they respond. There's no judgment or belief about it. But even those who are in chronic pain, I have an uncle who would really benefit from this. And so I like to say the CBD, it's non-addictive. Of course, it's non-addictive, and it's non-psychoactive. And so the people who may have had an issue with, oh, marijuana, it's drugs, this is actually beautiful how it's helping them see that it really is beautiful. I've known people who are really against drugs, but then they love the CBD in the salve and the oils in the
Yes.
drops. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't it?
Well, it's so phenomenal. And again, there are folks in our society and in our tribe who've struggled with issues of addiction. It's just how it is here in this density on this planet. And so they can't use those narcotics because their system isn't going to let them. And so to have another human or an animal suffering because of that, that just makes no sense to me at all. And so to have a natural way to get the relief. And, one of my favorite stories is I was a DARE kid. I was a DARE leader, the drug awareness resistance education. But I also learned later as I was doing my own research that we weren't told everything. Yes, there's a downside to those, recreational drugs. But again, that comes from working with them in an unconscious way. It's from trying to have an up and out of body experience instead of coming back into our body and fully grounding and being with what's going on to create that shift. So again, I don't have judgment for anybody wherever they are in their relationship with plants and things like that. But my CBD is non-psychoactive. It's all healing, no high. If there are people who work I get questions from people who are drivers, and so they have to be able to pass tests. And I believe, based on our testing that we have to have done every time we have a crop, and if our level is above 0.3% or 0.03%, excuse me, they'll destroy our whole crop right there on the spot. You'll lose your whole seasons of harvest. So again, that I have to have a brilliant minded grower who knows how to work with the plant to keep that level within the legal range. That's not going to create any kind of psychoactive result. But I have heard, not from my product, but from other products, where people who get tested, I've heard of some positive tests that have come from it. So if somebody is so concerned about that and passing a test, then I say use the rub. You're going to get the same relief. The difference to me from taking it internally, because I always think that's the best way because it gets into your system, is the long-term shifting of the condition. Because not only do we have these CBD receptors, our body has the ability to create its own CBD. But the longer that we've been removed from it, and I say the longer that it's been since we moved out of the forest and working with all the plants, the less our bodies have produced our own CBD. And so I think we're going to see this more in the next 5 to 10 years, where people are going to see this endocannabinoid system deficiencies are going to be coming forward. We're going to see it, and it's at the base of that inflammation, which we know inflammation is the base of disease in the dis-ease in the body. And CBD is such an amazing anti-inflammatory, and they believe it's when your body is creating, when it's in balance, then it's able to create its own CBD again. And so when people are taking the drops internally, what I tell them is, let's get you dosed for relief here, and then stay at that dose for 90 days. There's something about this 90-day period that allows your body to find its balance. And most people, after the 90-day period, staying on their dose consistently, they can come back down because their body has found its own balance and it's starting to create its own CBD. So most people after the 90-day period can come down to a maintenance dose. Now there's some of the folks with a chronic long-term, they haven't come down as much, but they're so grateful that their life has been given back to them and they have mobility. They are able to live without the pain, that they're like, fine, I'll take 10 drops twice a day. I don't care. I'm getting relief and I'm not getting addicted. So each body, each just like all of us, our paths are different. We're on our own unique path, and our healing path is unique to us. And so it's imperative that we be in the listening and that we be in collaboration with these ancient healing allies who can help us. It's not about doing it on our own and struggling through and figuring it out. It's about surrendering into all that is, into the oneness, and remembering our space in there and all of the legions of helpers that we have when we come from that heart space.
Yeah, so beautiful. This is good for pain to start there. But what I love about it too is that this is almost a rebalancing on a spiritual level, emotional, spiritual, physical, so that we can not have as much stress or anxiety. I know folks who take CBD oil to really calm down their stress, and it works really well. And so, as you were talking there, what a beautiful multidimensional tool to bring us into the oneness, to bring us into a frequency in the physical body. 90 days of balance with the CBD oil, putting us in a stasis that we can cultivate that on our own. It's beautiful. And I just have to say again, just the honor that you give it, the respect that you give it, the way that you work with plant music in it is extraordinary. Again, for us working with it, taking it and listening to that plant music, it's just going to on more levels than we can even talk about right now. It enhances that, and it's going to remove limitations, doubts, worry, fears, right? This is when we're in this oneness, that is a byproduct where we lose all that stuff.
And that's what we need because we keep creating from that old space of fear. And again, everything is either love or a call for love. And oftentimes, especially with our animals, of course, because they're our heart and we love them, we do things out of fear and disguised as love. You're like, oh, I love this animal so much. And I'm afraid if I don't do this, it's gonna something's gonna happen. And we need to shift that because we have to remember energy's at the basis of everything that's going on. And we need to be in that clear centered space of love, and then from there go out and make our decisions. And so we want to up level this whole game needs to be up leveled, and this is one place that we've got this opportunity. And what I really love about it, again, I am not against Western medicine. I am so grateful for the techniques and the science that they've brought forward and the diagnostics that we have. We should never claim any labels, but we should take the information that we get. And what I love about using CBD as like your first line of defense in these different areas is it allows your body to then be receptive. If you have to escalate at some point, you're more receptive to those pharmaceuticals at that point instead of having your body maxed out on everything all the time because you're on the most potent stuff of all of it. So we've got folks who use it because they've got chronic issues. We've got folks who use it because there's an acute issue. I believe that every first aid kit should have the drops and the rub. We've got a first aid kit in our camping gear, we've got one in our car, and we've got one in our saddlebags. And it's got a bottle of the drops and a jar of the rub because you don't know what's going to happen when you're out on the road. You don't know what's going to happen when you're out on the trail. All of those aspects, but to have it so that so if you sprain your ankle or your dog, how many times have you been out with your dog playing catch and they overdo it and they just need a little boost to reduce that inflammation? So I found, again, for folks with the chronic issues, whether that's brain balance chronic issues, anxiety, things like that, if it's the physical chronic issues, those kinds of people, or our self-doubt, I'm thinking spiritual issues, the chronic self-doubt that we have, that needs to be consistent. We need to be dosing consistent to stay on that, and that's where that 90 days comes in. But again, for your holistic first aid kit, this is something that needs to be in there, and you would have, again, this ability to add the harmonics. I know there are times when I'm working with folks and I'm like, just work with the harmonics today, You don't even need to take the physical plant stuff. Work with the harmonics. So for folks who are ready and are at that space, because not everybody's there, that's a phenomenal way to work with it. And cats, again, sensitive beings that they are, respond phenomenally to just the music of the plants even. It blows my mind every day. I get to receive these emails from people that tell me, again, either about their grandma or their husband, their wife, themselves, their dog, their cat, their goat that is getting relief and that wasn't able to get them before. And, for folks who are integrating the Western medicine with holistic medicine, the CBD can work with the other pharmaceuticals that you're on without creating some kind of an interaction, a negative interaction. In fact, what we found is that CBD somehow seems to help make other drugs more potent. So what we've seen in over, the months that somebody would be on it or their dogs would be on it, their practitioners being able to take down the doses of the other drugs because they're more effective. So it's been such, over a decade I've been studying this and helping dose people around the world. And when I found how hard it was for me to help people find a good product, that's when I realized I need to call some very special people and some very special plants into my life so that I can share this relationship, this ally in a whole new way. And so every day I'm in huge gratitude for the plants and the people that have come together in the way that they have for us to take an interdimensional approach to our healing.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And we are so thankful for you listening to the call of your heart and bringing this forward with the plants, with the CBD oil, and that whole process. This is a new earth business and it is high frequency and high vibe. And we thank you so much for that. So, as people get this product, you've got a link here. It's available on this webpage for people to use this and put this in their first aid kit and make it a part of their life. Oh my gosh, I want to send some around to my relatives and oh, my cousin with a dog who has knee issues in his older years. So this is really beautiful. Again, it's the high frequency. Just want to iterate the way that you have put your intentions, the way that you honor the plant, that beautiful ceremony, and where the plants are growing in the beautiful sacred valley with the crystals and the aquifer at an elevation that's above 7,000 feet. Again, with the plant music, it's just extraordinary. And the fact that even it brings us into a brain balance, this is almost like part of our everyday routine. So no matter where we're starting, if we're in chronic pain and have to get out of it, or even if we just don't want to worry so much, or depression. I know there's a lot of depression out there with our pandemic. I actually saw that coming. What do you have to say about depression and CBD oil?
Yeah, CBD again, it helps bring the body into balance. And part of that balance is that brain balance. Now, what I found, like I said, pain is the easiest thing for me to alleviate for folks because it's just you either have pain or you don't have pain. What we know about, brain balance issues, I think about the folks that I've worked with who experience seizures. And we know that finding the balance can take a couple months, versus dialing in for pain. It's like within a week, this is the right dose. With brain balance issues like seizures, even anxiety or depression, we're going to start at a particular dose and then we're going to see, how is it reacting? It might take a little longer to dial it in, but what we find is you have more time in between episodes and the episodes aren't as severe. So that's what people are finding in terms of, and I'm talking about more severe anxiety, depression, things like that. The folks who are really finding themselves struggling now in the middle of everything that's unfolded, most of them add a dose of the 4 drops twice a day. That's going to immediately alleviate that. But to know, with something like brain balance, you might need to be with it a little bit longer. But what I found, again, The folks that I work with to, I call it unpack their intuitive backpacks, that most of those folks are struggling with depression and anxiety, not because there's something off in their brain, but because they have not stepped into their abilities and understanding how those abilities, those intuitive abilities are coming to them. And as the energy amps up on the planet, people are going to be feeling it more. And so those folks, especially who are struggling with anxiety, we're so programmed to be looking at, oh shit, the other shoe's going to drop. What's the next, the next bad thing that's going to happen? It, but for the folks, especially in our tribes, who are more sensitive, they're actually being invited. Their whole body is the dowsing rod telling them there's energy trying to connect with you, but we freak out and we go into the oh no, and then we've got all these stories to go into agreement of why we feel off and crazy, when instead there was a new possibility that was looking to come through, or a new connection, or a big aha, or an insight, but we're so trained to turn it off and dismiss it. So when I work with folks and helping them to understand the messages, to track the energy, I call it energy tracking, my students, I suggest they work with CBD 30 minutes before they do their readings, 30 minutes before they go into their spiritual practice, so that it's activated and you're in that space, so that when that grip comes up, oh, there's something else going on here, and we can retrain our brain. My dad did it unknowingly. He's not trying to be some light worker out there. He's just trying to be my dad out there in the world. And he was able to do it even without that consciousness and that intention. So when we come as individuals who are looking to step into our expansion more and to experience the other possibilities, and we come into that conscious collaboration, well, that's the sweet spot of the universe, and that's where the magic really happens.
Ah, yes. So CBD enhances intuition and those abilities and opens us up to that. All right. The energy is trying to connect with us. Beautiful. We are so excited. You have your special offer in a couple of products. You've talked about the drops and the oil and the way that we can totally use this in all aspects of our life. Talk a little bit about the packages then that you've got, the
Yeah.
option.
So I wanted to make sure that people had all different options. Some folks are like, great, I got enough information in this master class that I'm just going to start. I'm going to try it. I'm going to listen to what she said. And they're going to grab their bottle of drops or their jar of rub or one of each. And then some folks are like, you know what? I need a little more support. Maybe I'm a little nervous. Maybe I'm not sure. Or maybe I got so many things going on. I'm not sure where to focus. And so one of the packages includes one of each of the products, and I didn't even mention the soaking salts yet. That's one of them that's in there, but it includes a 30-minute session with me. And so in that session, not only can I help you dose, you or your animals, whatever that we're doing here, but I can help you look at the energetics that are behind what's showing up. Because again, when we marry that consciousness with that intention, we start to open up and create new possibilities. So maybe you've been dealing with that bum leg for years, or ever since you had that accident when you were 17, or just in the last 2 years, and you can't get relief. Let's look at what that energy is showing you, as well as setting the intention to get some relief and have a shift. Because when we bring the attention to the energy, again, that's the sweet spot of the universe. We can change from there. I've had people's lab test results change just by being in a session where we look at the energy behind what's going on for them or their animals. That's unheard of. It's insane. But when we live interdimensionally, when we live as infinite beings embodied in these human forms, or in the doggy form or the cat form or the horse form, and we recognize these beings with us, we're playing at a different level. We're able to create different outcomes. So one of the options is to get one of each of the products and the session with me. And what I do for everyone, whether you just buy one product or whether you do the whole kit and caboodle with a session with me, I infuse the products specifically for each person or animal before I send them out. So with the people who've done the session, we've looked at things. I already know what the infusion is going to be. I'm going to connect with their team and my team, and we'll complete that. But even if you just send in and you're like, I just want the drops and it's for me, you can tell me what it's about or not tell me what it's about. It's totally up to you. And I will do the infusion before it gets shipped out. And again, these are all the ways to keep that consciousness. And then when you play the plant music, once you receive the product, everything is reminded. So even though it's been out in the world and in EMFs and in all of this nonsense, it can come right back to its center and be rebalanced for you specifically, or your dog or your cat or your grandma or your partner or whatever.
Yes, that is truly quantum because as we know, the multidimensionalness of all this and the plant music itself is outside of time and space. And
Absolutely.
so when we take the time to tap into that, we are supported in that way. CBD oil is the modern day chill pill without being so chill. It's healing without the high.
Yes.
And it is a beautiful tool, a beautiful collaboration with sacred medicine. Yes.
Absolutely. Well put. There, that's it. That's the bottom line. And it allows us to come back into our body in a safe way instead of trying to have an up and out experience, which keeps us disconnected and in separation and outside of that unity consciousness that we are looking to call in more and more. And couple that with the cosmic forces and alignments that are going on right now every day. We want to be as tuned in, we want to be as connected as we can, because that's where the freedom lies, that's where the expansion lies, that's where infinite possibilities live.
Yes. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Ana Maria Vasquez, for your beautiful work with the plant music and the CBD oil in your very, very cool, authentic, special, honoring system in that entire process. Again, your special offer is available, and you are an incredible guide for those who seek it. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this Mastery Empowerment course.
Thank you. And thank you for creating a platform where we can have these conversations and really work interdimensionally. It's such a blessing. Honor to you.
Thank you. And thank you to the cannabis mother plant that supports your work. Thank you. If you would like Ana Maria's special offer, please scroll down on this page and review that. Thank you. Namaste. Okay. Very good. All right, my dear.
How fun.
So what we'll do this, we have a Neo retreat coming up on 10/10 that we're going to put this in. I may bring this out a little bit ahead of time on
Okay.
a special weekend event that's just like you and only this. That'll be cool.
Will you email me your physical address and I'll send you a little care package? And then if you have any particular issues that you want to know about dosing, let me know and I can dial it in quicker for you. I can scan.
Yeah, well, I would just say, I mean, outside of any pain or anything, just to do it on a spiritual level for abilities.
Then I would
Yeah.
do the 4 drops and I would just do it once a day
Mm.
at that level when you're just looking for that. And it's so potent and you're so open. So I'm going to send you a bottle of the drops, a jar of the rub, and a container of the salts. And so for the salts, I would
Wait, hold on.
suggest
Let me record that.
okay. Yeah, good idea.
Oh, one more thing we wanted to add, the salts. Tell us about the salts.
Yeah, so the salts, it's so interesting. And I've learned so much in these product creations and had information downloaded to me. But anything that we put in, on, or around us, it's important. And what I was finding is these soaking salts, which are supposed to be helping you decompress and even release things. Again, they're being mined in unconscious ways in areas that are heavily polluted, and then we soak in it and then we take it into our system and it actually creates an imbalance. So I had to source the highest quality uh, magnesium salts so that because magnesium is a great balancer for the body and for the skin and for all of our systems. And most of us, we're so depleted of magnesium because our body doesn't store magnesium. And we actually, it gets run out from stress, sugary drinks, and caffeine. So most of the Western world is quite depleted in one of the a very important mineral, which is Epsom salt. Then the other thing is we want to use high quality salts because of the other trace minerals that we're getting. So I combine a high quality Himalayan sea salt with these magnesium salts, and then I add the high vibrating CBD to it. So most folks will use the salt. You put it in your tub and you want to soak for 20 to 30 minutes in warm to hot water to get the full effects, the full therapeutic effects of that. But what I've really found, which is great, and I suggest doing that before bedtime. So anyone who's had one of those achy days, those you put out too much effort, you overdid it, perfect. Or the chronic pain sufferers who they just had a bad day. We know you've got flare-ups. That'd be a great day to do that, and your sleep will be phenomenal that night. But the other way to use the salts, which I love and recommend in my tribe all the time, is as high sensitives, we are like these sponges and we collect everything from around us. And when we're feeling like, our normal process of clearing and letting go, and we've interacted with so many people and we're noticing, I still feel like I got the ickies on me. One of these salt baths is phenomenal because we know the negative ions in the salt help to release all of those other energies. So I suggest doing a ceremony bath. So take a bath on a full moon, on the new moon, either one, and set your intention. Is it for releasing? Is it for calling in? Is it for that next leveling? Is it for clarity? But to work again, not just with a plant, but working with the earth minerals. We are so connected and we forget. Again, when we came out of the woods, we went into amnesia. And now we're in these highly modernized societies and we're being flooded with information that scrambles our knowingness. And we can come back easily just through a ceremony with water and the minerals and the plant. And so a way to really be intentional about that. And I know some people don't have bathtubs, full soaking tubs. You can do it in a foot bath too. I would only use like a quarter or a half of the container if you're going to do it in a foot bath. But we know there's 60 to 80,000 receptors on our feet that are taking in that information as well. So I think the soaking salts have been a beautiful way to bring in more ceremony as well as get us relief, mind, body, and spirit.
Oh, that'll open us up so much that we could start speaking light language. We've heard that of happening.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
All right. Thank you.